My daughter had security kick me out of her wedding because her husband didn't want failed old men in photos. I left quietly, burned their belongings, and changed the locks. My name is Ernest Miller. I am 56 years old, and I work as a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm in Ohio. My ex-wife, Claire, walked out on me 12 years ago when our daughter, Natalie, was just 16. It was devastating. 22 years of marriage evaporated because Claire fell in love with someone else and decided to go find her happiness. She left with that man and never looked back. She visited Natalie occasionally during those first few years, but the visits became increasingly rare. Eventually, she moved to the West Coast with her new partner and practically vanished from our lives. I was left alone to raise a teenage girl. I worked full-time, cooked, cleaned, helped with homework, and attended every parent-teacher conference. Everything that two parents normally share, I did by myself. Natalie took it very hard at first. She blamed her mother for leaving, but over time, strangely, she started blaming me, too. Mom left because you didn't make her happy, she told me once during an argument when she was 18. Your mother made her own choice, I replied, with as much patience as I could muster. I always tried to be a good husband. Clearly it wasn't enough, she replied, with a cruelty that cut deep. But I kept moving forward, because she was my daughter, my responsibility, my love. I supported her through her college years. I paid her tuition, her textbooks, everything. I worked overtime to cover every expense so she wouldn't graduate with student debt. Natalie studied graphic design, graduated at 23, and landed a job at a boutique agency. She moved out of her student apartment and rented her own place. Finally, she was independent. Or so I thought. 2 years after graduating, the agency Natalie worked for went under. Suddenly, she was unemployed, had no savings, and had rent due. Natalie had never really learned how to save money. She called me crying. Dad, I don't know what to do. I can't make rent. I don't have money for groceries. I need help. Come home, I said without hesitation. You can stay here until you get back on your feet. No rent. Just focus on finding a job. Thank you, Dad, she said, her voice thick with relief. She moved back into her old bedroom the next day. At 25, she was living with her father again. I gave her space and emotional support. I helped her update her resume. I paid for all the food and utilities. She didn't contribute a dime because she had no income. It is temporary, she kept telling me. Just until I land something. A month passed. Then 2. Then 3. How is the job hunt going? I would ask regularly. It is tough, she would answer vaguely. The market is really competitive right now. But I am looking. However, I noticed she spent a lot of time scrolling on her phone. She went out frequently with friends for drinks. She did not look like someone desperate to find work. And then, she met Gavin. Gavin showed up at my house 4 months after Natalie moved back in. He was 35 years old, 10 years older than my daughter. He was tall and thin, with that arrogant confidence that comes from never having actually worked hard for anything. From the start, something about him rubbed me the wrong way. It was the way he looked at my house, appraising it, as if he were calculating its market value. It was the way he sprawled out on my recliner like he owned the place, the way he demanded things without actually asking. Ernest, do you have anything to drink? Maybe a cold beer? He would say, not asking, but assuming. After that first visit, I asked Natalie about him. What does Gavin do for a living? He is in between opportunities right now, she said defensively. In between opportunities? I repeated. How long has he been unemployed? I don't know, a few months, but he is looking. He is very talented, Dad. He just needs the right break. Alarm bells rang in my head. A 35-year-old man with no job, dating my 25-year-old daughter who also had no job. 2 people with 0 income trying to build a relationship. It was a recipe for disaster. But Natalie was in love. I saw it in her eyes. That blind adoration that ignores every single red flag. Gavin started coming over more often, 3 times a week, then 4. Then he was there practically every day, and he always arrived right at dinner time. I was just in the neighborhood, he would say. Is there extra food? He ate my food, he drank my beer, he used my Wi-Fi, my electricity, and my living room to watch sports, and never, not once, did he offer to chip in. Worse, I started noticing how he treated my daughter. He used a condescending, possessive tone. Natalie, get me some water. Natalie, my phone is dying, go find a charger. Orders, not requests, and she obeyed him, as if she were desperate to please him. The money I gave her to help her get by was being used to maintain her parasite boyfriend. 8 months after meeting Gavin, Natalie announced they were getting married. What? I asked, stunned. So soon? We are in love, she said, her eyes shining with delusion. Why wait? Natalie, you barely know him. And he doesn't work. How are you going to support yourselves? That is not your problem, she responded sharply. We will figure it out. Where are you going to live? Well, she hesitated. We were thinking we could stay here for a while. Just until Gavin finds a job and we can rent a townhouse. Of course they plan to live in my house. 2 married adults, living rent-free, subsidized by me. Natalie, please, Dad, she begged, it is just temporary. And about the wedding. We need some financial help. Not much. Maybe $8,000 for the venue, the catering, and the flowers. $8,000, I repeated, my face expressionless. I know it is a lot to ask, she continued quickly. But you are my dad, and this is my wedding. It is a special moment in my life. Don't you want it to be perfect? I looked at my daughter, saw the pleading eyes and the hope in her face, and I thought about all the years I had raised her alone, all the sacrifices, all the love, and I caved. All right, I sighed. I will cover $8,000 for the wedding. Thank you, Dad, she screamed, hugging me. You are the best. But I didn't feel like the best. I felt like a fool. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of wedding planning. Natalie was constantly stressed, obsessed with every detail. Gavin, naturally, did not lift a finger. Those are girl things, he said, leaning back on my sofa while Natalie ran around like a maniac. I wrote the checks totaling $8,000. I paid the venue, deposit, the caterer, the florist, everything Natalie asked for. I also assumed I would be walking my daughter down the aisle. It was tradition. It was my right as a father. I had raised this girl alone for 12 years. If anyone deserved that honor, it was me. The wedding day arrived on a sunny Saturday in June. I put on my best suit, one I had bought specifically for this occasion. I felt proud, emotional, and a little sad that my little girl was growing up and marrying the wrong man. But I couldn't change that now. I arrived at the venue an hour before the ceremony. The place was beautiful. Elegant decorations, flowers everywhere, white chairs perfectly aligned on the lawn. My money was well spent, at least visually. I went to find Natalie to check the timeline. I found her in the bridal suite with her bridesmaids. She looked stunning in her white gown. Natalie, honey, I just wanted to confirm what time we line up to walk. She looked at me with a strange expression. Walk? Down the aisle, I explained. To give you away to Gavin. Oh, she said, exchanging glances with her friends. Dad, about that, Gavin and I decided that I am going to walk alone. It is more modern, more independent. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. What? But I am your father. I'm supposed to walk with you. I am sorry, Dad, she said, not sounding sorry at all. We already made the decision, and we hope you understand. Dad, please, she said with a tone of irritation. Don't make this difficult. Go sit with the guests. The ceremony starts in 30 minutes. I stood there, stunned, feeling completely rejected. But I nodded. Okay. I walked out of the bridal suite with a heavy heart. I headed toward the main lawn where the guests were starting to arrive. And then, something happened that changed everything. Gavin appeared, flanked by 2 venue security guards. That is him, Gavin said, pointing at me. That is the guy I told you about. The guards approached me. Sir, we need you to come with us. What? Why? The groom requested that you be removed from the event, one of the guards said professionally. There must be a mistake, I said, my heart starting to race. I am the father of the bride. I paid for this wedding. There is no mistake, Gavin said with a cruel smirk. Natalie and I decided you shouldn't be here. You are lying, I snapped. Natalie wouldn't do this to me. Call her out here and let her tell me herself. Less than 5 minutes later, Natalie appeared. She looked slightly ashamed, but then she confirmed it. Dad, the thing is, my husband doesn't want failed old men ruining the aesthetic of this day. It is best if you leave. I couldn't believe it. I stood there in shock. I felt tears of humiliation and rage forming. But I paid for this, I whispered. And we appreciate it, Gavin said condescendingly. Consider your financial contribution as your wedding gift. Now leave, before these gentlemen drag you out. The guards looked at me uncomfortably, waiting to see if I would cooperate. I looked around. Some guests had noticed the scene and were whispering among themselves. The humiliation was complete. Fine, I said, my voice shaking. I am going. I walked toward the exit with my head down. Every step felt like it weighed a ton. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, the rejected father, the failed old man who wasn't welcome at his own daughter's wedding. I got home around 1 in the afternoon. I walked straight into Natalie's bedroom. All her clothes were still there. Her belongings, her childhood mementos, everything she had left when she temporarily moved in with me a year ago. I started packing. Not carefully, I just shoved things into heavy-duty trash bags, clothes, shoes, cosmetics, books, everything. 20 bags later, I had cleared out Natalie's entire existence in my house. I dragged them to the backyard fire pit. And then I did something that was probably extreme, but in that moment, it felt absolutely necessary. I lit a fire. I watched it all burn. Her designer clothes that she bought with money I probably gave her, her photos of her and Gavin, her diplomas, her keepsakes, everything. When it was all ash, I called an emergency locksmith. I need every lock on my house changed. Now. I will pay triple the weekend rate. By 6 that evening, every lock on my house had been changed. Front door, back door, garage, everything. Then, I sat down to wait. It was almost 11 at night when I heard a car pull up. Voices in the driveway. The sound of keys trying to turn in the lock. Why isn't my key working? I heard Natalie's voice, tired and irritated. Try it again, Gavin said. More jiggling of keys, growing frustration. Dad! Natalie yelled, pounding on the door. Open up! Our keys aren't working. I walked to the door, but I didn't open it. I know, I said through the wood. I changed the locks. What? Why? Natalie asked. Do you really have to ask? I replied. There was silence for a moment. Then Gavin spoke up. Look, old man, I understand you are upset about today, but it was necessary. Now open the door. We are tired. No, I said simply. Dad, don't be ridiculous, Natalie screamed. Open the door. We live here. Not anymore, I said with a cold calm. After everything I did for you. After raising you alone when your mother abandoned us. After paying for your college. After letting you live rent-free in my house for a year. After giving you $8,000 for your wedding, I took a breath. You humiliated me. You kicked me out of your wedding like I was trash. You called me a failed old man. That was Gavin, Natalie started weakly. And you allowed it, I interrupted. Worse, you participated. You told me to leave. You said I would ruin your perfect day with my presence. So here is my answer. If I am such a failure, if I am so useless, then I don't want parasites in my house. Get out. You can't do this, Gavin shouted. This is Natalie's house too. No, I corrected him. This is my house. In my name. Paid for with my money. Natalie lived here because of my generosity. But that generosity ended today when you kicked me out of the wedding. Dad, please. Natalie sobbed, her voice breaking. We have nowhere to go. Gavin doesn't have a job, and neither do I. We don't have money for a hotel. That is not my problem, I said without sympathy. You are married adults now. Figure it out yourselves, like the adults you pretend to be. You are a monster, Gavin yelled. A bitter, cruel old man. Maybe, I admitted. But I am an old man with a house. You are two parasites without a place to sleep. Decide who is in a better position. I heard sobbing, murmurs of an argument, finally the sound of footsteps walking away. I looked out the window. I saw them get into their car. A small overnight bag was all they had brought back from their honeymoon, which I assume I also paid for indirectly. Gavin was yelling at Natalie. Natalie was crying. They started the car and drove away. I sat on my sofa, in my silent house, and for the first time in months, I felt peace. The first few weeks were a bombardment of calls and texts from Natalie, from Gavin, from some relatives who had heard what happened. I blocked everyone. I found out through the grapevine that Natalie and Gavin were living with his parents. A small apartment with his parents and two siblings. Crowded. Uncomfortable. And then, 6 weeks after the wedding, Natalie left Gavin. Apparently, she realized what I had seen from the beginning, that he was useless, lazy, and a user. She tried to contact me immediately. Calls from unknown numbers, emails, messages, all begging for forgiveness, asking for another chance, explaining that she had made a terrible mistake. I ignored it all. One day, 2 months after the wedding, she showed up at my office. She was waiting for me in the parking lot when I walked out. Dad, she said when she saw me. She looked terrible, thin, with dark circles under her eyes, her clothes wrinkled. Natalie, I said coldly. Please, I need to talk to you, she pleaded. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Gavin was exactly what you said. A leech. He used me. And I was so stupid. Yes, you were, I said simply. I am sorry, she said, tears streaming down her face. I am so sorry for everything. For not defending you when he insulted you. For kicking you out of my wedding. For calling you a failure. I was blind, Dad. I was so blind because I thought it was love. I see, I said without emotion. Can you forgive me? She asked desperately. Can I come home? I understand if you want me to pay rent or contribute to expenses. I got a job at a bakery. I don't make much, only about $1,200 a month, but I can give you something. No, I said with finality. No, what? You cannot come back. I do not forgive you. I do not want your money. I want you to go on with your life, and I will go on with mine. Separately. Dad, please, she sobbed. Natalie, you had security remove me from your wedding, I said, my voice shaking with contained emotion. The most important day of your life, and you threw me out like garbage. You called me a failed old man. You allowed that man to humiliate me for months without ever defending me. Dad, please. I am your daughter. And I was your father, I said, the father you kicked out, the failed old man you didn't want on your special day. Well, now you are not welcome in my life. Goodbye, Natalie. I got into my car and drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot. It has been 4 months since the wedding. 4 months since Natalie was removed from my house and my life. Do I miss my daughter? Every single day. It is a constant pain, like a wound that never completely heals. Do I regret my decision? No, not for a second. Because I learned something important. Love must have boundaries, even the love of a parent. For years, I allowed Natalie to disrespect me because I was afraid of losing her like I lost her mother, afraid of being completely alone. But I discovered that being alone is better than being with someone who despises you, that solitude is more tolerable than constant humiliation. My house is quiet now. It is just mine, no parasites, no people using me while insulting me. And in this moment, I feel free.